Hey guys, it's Cam here. Welcome back to the build room. In last week's episode, we stripped our 1977 Celica liftback down to bare metal, and man, it looked good. But in this week's episode, we're taking a look at the hatch area and some of the rust in the slam panel and getting that all sorted out and nice and protected. So stick around and check it out. Okay guys, welcome back. If you watched last week's episode, you would have seen us take Doofa Now from something that looks like this, and we made it into something that looks like this. And I am absolutely stoked with how it came out. We stripped the entire exterior back to bare metal, except for a couple of small areas. A quick run through. The bonnet has very little rust in it. The front, which normally rusts out, is really good. There's a couple of dents at the back near the vents, and obviously this one at the front. That's going to take some work with the spot welding dent puller, but we'll try to make that as good as we can before we throw filler on it. This fender was disappointing, to say the least. It's actually bananaed. It's hard to see on camera, but it curves inwards like that because there's been a fairly significant repair done here. There's also a repair at the back, which causes it to kick out and stick out more than it should. Now, it looks worse than it is because it's not bolted in. But yeah, that's a bit of a disappointment, as was this door, which I thought was the good one. When we stripped it down, it has a panel riveted into it at the top, common place for them to rust out, and then also another common place with a panel riveted over it. So that door went from hero to zero pretty quick. The rear quarter here is pretty much immaculate. There's not even any rust at the bottom of it. There's just a little bit of rust near the fuel door, which we can sort out. Fuel door sweet. Hatch is awesome, absolutely no problems there. We didn't get an opportunity to strip the paint around the tail lights or across the rear beaver, but we'll get to that today because we're going to be working in this area. This rear quarter was pretty solid. There has been a previous repair here, so that is a little bit ripply down that bottom half, but it's not bad, and I can probably improve it with a hammer and dolly. It does have some rust down the bottom here, but if you've watched the Violet Crumbles areas, you'll know that is not scary anymore. This door was the replacement door, and again, this one was a disappointment. So once we got the paint off, lots of rust at the top. The bottom is rusted out on the outside, and worse than that, inside, it's actually rusting out along the bottom, all the way along. So that's a bit of a disappointment. It's also had a big hit. So you can see on the outside, these little dots, that's where someone has put a old school dent puller into it and later filled the holes that it leaves with weld. So this is not smooth at all. And inside, I've actually cut a hole into the intrusion bar. So RA28 and 28s have doors with very large intrusion bars for obviously crash standards back in the day. TA22s didn't have those bars. So if you are ever looking for doors, try and get 23, 28 ones because they're a lot safer. This guard here was our new old stock one. We know that that is good. The only thing it's got is a couple of little dents from being in storage, but they're not too big a problem for now. They'll just be hammer and dollied out at some point. And the roof itself is pretty much perfect, except for one small dent at the back, which we'll be able to get out. Again, the scuttle panel's pretty good, just a few little bits of rust. Now today, we are focusing on the rear end of the car. So if I open this up, ignore the interior parts. I had to strip all of this off to actually get the side vents off. Pulling up these seals, we've got a little bit of paint stripper residue and stuff in there, but that's fine. We're going to strip all this anyway. But you can see down the bottom here, we do have rust. And this is probably one of the rustiest sections on the car. It hasn't been too bad. There has been water that's got into the wheel wells and things like that, but they're not completely rotted, and they were at some point, they were painted in a rust protector, obviously to stop that a little bit. So, you know, props to whoever did that. You probably saved the rear end of this car. This is quite bad. Obviously, we've lost the lip for the seal here, which means that is never going to seal properly. And then here, it's starting to tear through, if I can flex this enough. But you can see that little crack there wobbling. And we've got actually a fair amount of movement in this panel overall, right? So that's not good for anyone. So we start off by stripping this rear end. While all of these pieces are off, the rear trim panel here, you can see it's broken. That's usually from people doing up the bolts too tight on the back. I think I have a replacement for this one, but if not, we are going to plasti weld it probably and fill it, and then we're going to get all these painted so they look decent. So we're going to remove the hatch, get that out of the way, we'll get the seals out, we'll pull all of this rear end off, all the tail lights, the bumper and everything, get rid of the Doofa plate, and then we will strip the entire thing with paint stripper, make sure we can get it down to bare metal and see what we're actually dealing with. I'll do that on a montage, and then we'll come back and talk about our plan of action. All right, so we're done, and surprisingly little rust, which I am absolutely stoked about. I mean, if you look at the top here where the hinges normally bolt through, this is a common rust area all down the bottom here around the hinges themselves, but we have avoided all of that. That is all pretty good. In terms of the areas where the seals lay, all around the top's good, as I said. Down coming through the side, there's a little bit of surface rust, but there's nothing major. Now, this kind of stuff, this has not been sanded or rust converted or anything as yet, so I'm not really worried about that. I'm pretty sure I'll just be able to convert that, scour it, and then go over it with a protectant. The only place it's not great is on this side, and here you can see it's just started to eat into the lip for the seal, so I'll probably replace that area there, but nothing too difficult. The main areas of rust are on this very back ledge. So you can see here, I've actually cut away the top section so you can see what the substructures look like, but it looked probably a little worse than this. So I won't get rid of this section just yet. I'll leave that in place. I'll probably build this out in two sections. Firstly, this top piece, and then the bottom, because they've both got bends on the ends of them, and trying to get a bend there, a bend there, and a bend there in the bending brake is actually going to be quite difficult. I'm probably going to have to use a spacer for this section. I mean, these are the sorts of parts where having a finger brake would be really handy, but I don't have a finger brake and I don't have access to one, so we're going to make do with what we've got. I might have one crack at bending it up straight, and you know, if we get it on the first try, great. If not, we're going to move on. We're going to replace this. I've already cut a little piece of metal and bent it up on the brake, so you can see that will just sit along there. I've got to trim this down, obviously. Then we'll fix this, and then we'll do that one over there. And they're the main areas. There is a little section here that I've got to replace as well. And there has been a previous repair. This is the only spot that there has been a repair on the rear end. It looks like at some point there was a little bit of damage here, but it hasn't damaged this section here, and it also hasn't damaged any of the structure in the back. So it obviously wasn't a hard hit. I would imagine they probably left something hanging out here or whatever and slammed the boot shut on it and just dented this down. Other than that, you can see in here, the seams are a place where the rust loves to start. Even though they've got red oxide primer and then seam sealer in them, it's just always a weak point. And then along the bottom, you can see there's some freckling here and some spidering down the bottom. So yeah, wire brushes and rust converter all through here, a bit of sheet metal in the top, and we're gonna be good to go. Now, I'm not gonna film all of this because we've done plenty of episodes on rust repairs, but I'm gonna come back when it's done and you'll be able to see the finished product in detail. All right, we are done, and just be thankful you didn't have to watch 10 or 15 minutes of footage of me cutting out little patches and then welding them in and so on and so forth. But I'm super happy with it. These areas here, I did actually manage to bend that entire piece as one unit. So the bending brake is definitely paying for itself. So basically this piece here is a single piece of steel from this edge to right there, with the exception of just a little bit down here, obviously, because I couldn't bend that on the brake. I also replaced really large sections here, here, and then also the same repair here, and again, managed to do it in one piece. So basically, we have a lot more strength here now. This feels very, very solid. I have test fitted the boot onto this, and it fits up quite nicely, and everything looks like it's in the spot it's supposed to be. So there's still a few things left to do though. So firstly, if we look down here, you can see on that back lip, all of those high areas, they're the patch areas. So I've got to go through and cut them down to the right height. Then I've got to go and drill some new holes for the tail lights because obviously the patches don't have the holes in the right spots. And then we get into how we're actually going to protect this moving forward. And as I said, the whole point of doing this with Doofa at the moment is to protect it and stop it from rusting in the short to medium term. And the next layer is going to be this. We are doing, again, satin black KBS rust seal. That goes directly onto bare metal. You have to prep the surface properly. I've done this in a previous episode, so if you want to know the hows and whens of it, the Violet Crumbles episode where we paint the floor has all the info you'll need for that. So again, no need to show you guys a long timeline. We're just going to go, all right, we are back in black. This thing looks pretty awesome. I've just finished the second coat. It is extremely glossy right now, and there was a couple of issues. So I think I failed to stir the can as much as I needed to. So it's been sitting on my shelf since we did the inside of Violet Crumbles, and I think that potentially it had settled a lot. I did give it a quick mix up, but it didn't seem to do a lot. And what I found was the first coat that went on this went on quite well, but then it seemed to sort of fall off the panel as the solids settled, and there just wasn't enough of those solids to get good cover. The other thing that meant was that it ran very easily, and I've got some runs through here that I'm just gonna have to deal with. They're permanent now. And it didn't seem to mat up as quickly as it did on the floors of the Violet Crumbles. So it's really glossy right now. That makes it quite difficult to be able to tell much. So I want to give this time to cure so that you guys can have a look at it finished up and see what the repairs came out like. The good news is we have got a t-shirt giveaway to do. So we'll leave this for probably 4 to 6 hours. For now, we'll go and do the t-shirt giveaway, and then we'll come back, look at the finished product. In the meantime, I have also repaired and painted the back fascia. And it's not a good job, but it is a job. And so we'll put this thing back together and you can see what it looks like done. So yeah, let's go see who the lucky winners are. All right, so 5 episodes, 2 winners per episode, 10 winners in total. Here we go. Now, I drew these using the same random generator thing that I did in the last giveaway, but with 10 winners, that takes a long time. I don't want to waste everyone's time, so you're just gonna have to trust me that this is a legit giveaway. The other thing is I'm only gonna read out the winners. There are alternates, and if I don't hear back from people within, say, a fortnight, I will go to the alternates and let them know. So here we go. Episode 1 winners, Nathan Farrell and CEYRE. I'll put it up on the screen. Maybe that's pronounced Siri, who knows. Episode 2, Eugene V and Matthew King. Episode 3, Celica Dreams and Tom Spears. Episode 4, Owen Lambert and PKD. And finally, episode 5, Edmund Breaks Stuff and Sketchhouse. So yeah, if you are one of these 10 people, what you need to do is email me at thebuildroom@outlook.com. I will send you basically a challenge question to make sure that the person emailing me is actually the person who owns the account. In that email that you send me, you only need to really do 2 things. Tell me the style of the t-shirt you want, and you can pick any of the styles that are on shop.thebuildroom.com, whether they be Celica related or modern Jap stuff or some of the themed cars around Doofa Now and Violet Crumbles and so on and so forth. Whatever you want, just tell me the particular style, and you also need to tell me your size. So there's size charts on the website as well. Make sure you look at them, pick the right size. For those of you that missed out, you can always buy them straight off the store, or I'm sure we'll do another one of these giveaways at some point. Now with that out of the way, let's get back and see the finished product of this rear end. All right, so matted up appropriately. You can see there's much less of a sheen on it than there was before. And yeah, overall it looks pretty good. Now there's a couple of things. Firstly, the runs. There's nothing I can really do about that. You can sand this stuff back. I'm just not going to do that right now. So there's a couple of areas, so along here especially, and then obviously and underneath on the rear apron near the number plate, those are seen when the car is fully assembled. So those will have to be run free and nicely sanded when we go to paint this thing overall. But for right now, in the bare metal theme, this is something I can live with. It will do for now. It can't be like this long term because the other thing is that KBS by itself is not UV stable. So I can't leave this out in the sun for a long period because the surface will start to deteriorate. But obviously, bare metal car, we're not too worried about this thing being the first thing that gets damaged if this is left out in the weather. Tips wise, like I said, make sure you stir it properly. Also, make sure that you put some masking tape below these holes like I did, just so that you don't end up painting the backside of your headliner, because if it seeps through, you're going to have a bad day. And as usual with KBS, just make sure you don't get into a situation where you're getting it on yourself when it's wet. Also, if you get it on the car, clean it up, because I put a little dot up the top there. That will be a pain to get off. And there's a couple of other areas where I got little smudges. Clean them up at the time and you're okay. Leave them for too long and then you're in trouble. And then the other thing that you guys are probably screaming out at the screen at the moment is seam sealer. So you do not put seam sealer under this product, just the same way as you don't put primer or bonder on it. You put your seam sealer over the top once it's cured. So we're not going to do the seam sealer now because it will show up and look a bit silly behind the bumpers and lights and things like that. And we're not getting this thing wet anyway while it's bare metal. So we will come back later, we will seam seal all of these seams, and then we will be able to prime over the top and paint. But yeah, there's lots of little seams, so not only do I have to do these areas like this, which, you know, they were quite rusty as you saw, but I've also got a seam seal basically the entire way up the sill on the side. There's seam sealer all along this edge. That edge is absolutely amazing. I'm so happy with that finish. I love satin KBS. It comes out looking so good. I don't know why anyone would ever use gloss. They should just not make it. But yeah, that's about as good as it's gonna look for now. So let's get it reassembled and then I will show you guys the finished product. All right, so we're done. It is back together and it's looking fantastic. The bumper is an unfortunate one. It has a dent in it. I thought I had another bumper that was in much better condition, but I just pulled that out and it's also got a dent in it, probably a little bit smaller than this, but it does need a big cleanup. So I'm gonna clean up both and see how I go. And as I said before, the job that I've done repainting and repairing the rear fascia panels is good from afar, but far from good. I mean, the bottom line is these are cracked. That has led to some warping over the years, so they're never gonna look great. I'm gonna try and find some better ones for when we repaint the car, but these ones are gonna do for now. So yeah, that's it for today's episode. Next week, look, I think I might have lost the plot here, but I'm gonna try and get this thing roadworthy for Toyotas in the park. I'm not exactly sure what that's gonna take at the moment. We'll know a lot more once I can get under the car and have a look at everything, but I have started a list and it's a big one. So yeah, we're gonna try and chop through as much of that list as we can next week, and then hopefully it'll be going down for a rego inspection the week after. So yeah, make sure you stay tuned for that one. And for now, I'll put the full Violet Crumble series up here for those of you that are into the detail, and I'll put the Doofa Now series down here for those of you that need to catch up. Other than that, I just want to say thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time on The Build Room. Bye for now.